so I'm ready whenever.
Okay, hang on.
So Frank, this is the water tank back here. Can you explain what was here and what else used to be here at one time?
Well, the water tank, I can't really remember whether the Y went on that side of the water tank or this side. But so the old steam engines, they would go back in here and they'd fill the tender with water. And then, but this Y was really important for the helper locomotives and for the snowplow. The snowplow had to be turned here in order to go back up to the mountains.
Okay.
And so it got used quite a bit. I never went beyond the tracks there, but there's some place in here was also a car knocker. We call them a car knocker, a car we put brakes on the cars and whatnot, and maybe some other minor work. We had, I think we had 4 tracks in the yard. We had a main, a passing track, and 2 other tracks. And the train coming from the Everett line would come up here and come onto this track, someplace up in here, come down here, and then it would go into the yard, and it would make 2 cuts. It would make a cut for Seattle and make a cut for eastbound. And so I'm assuming this car knocker may have worked on the locomotives at one time, once in a while. But after about 72, I'm guessing, the Milwaukee bought these great big Jeeps. They're 3-axle drive Jeeps, 8,000 series Jeeps, really, really heavy duty stuff. And then they took the westbound that came out of Bellingham and Everett and so forth. They took the westbound traffic. Well, this was when the Portland extension was approved. And so then they'd take the westbound stuff all the way down to, I'm assuming, to Tacoma. And they buried one of those 8,000 units between Everett and Bellingham. Everything was so soft up there. These were really, really heavy duty. Only running on 65-pound steel.
Up in Bellingham. Yeah, I know.
It was pretty shaky stuff. But they would spend the night in the beanery, in the hotel.
Where was the hotel from here, roughly?
It was right below where we parked.
Oh, by the substation.
Yeah,
Okay.
down, just over the bank.
Oh.
Just over the bank. It was a 2-story building. And right alongside of that is where we had air disconnect for the 115,000 volt power line coming from Snoqualmie. And that was on 2 poles. And at the top of the pole was a rectangle arrangement. And these standoff insulators were up there. And you had to open that breaker with a control down here. And it was a really, really hair-raising thing, because it would draw an arc out of there maybe 3 feet long.
Oh, yeah.
And closing it had to be, you had to be lucky, because at the top of the bushings was a V like this. And, well, maybe it was on this side. Yeah, it was on that side. And so on this side, on this bushing here, you had a hinge with about a 4-foot straight piece like that, and it had to come down, it had to go right into that. Well, the way the wind blew here so much, this whole thing got racked a lot, and sometimes that arm would go alongside of this thing, and then you have to reopen it again. Oh, man. I always wore a hard hat, but I could still feel my hair going up. So that was right at the back door at the beanery.
Okay.
There's pictures in one of the railroad magazines or books about a guy feeding the raccoons that were underneath the stairway of the, yes, yeah. And so that was kind of crazy stuff. The raccoons, nowadays I really shoot them, but so what else we had here? We used to have get-togethers with the people from the water department,
Yeah.
and the people that lived that were up here from the electrical, and we'd have maybe lunch or snack off 4th of July thing or something like that. It was nice. It was very family connected. Because we had, well, let's see, we had people living in all 3 of the bungalows. The car knocker lived in one. The relief agent lived in one, and Nancy and I lived in one. And then right next to the substation, we had a track maintenance guy that lived there. Then we had about 3 boxcars that were made into cabins that were truck cars. And then Andy Brett Snyder, the old man, they lived in the next one. Oh, and Tom and was there Margaret? Tom, they had two girls. Tom was the communications man. He had a motor car, just like the signal maintainer, and he would go up and work in the telephones wherever they needed to be worked on.
So the railroad's own phone system.
He worked between here and Maple Valley. Both he and Brett Snyder they had motor cars, went back and forth. One time I went with Tom up to Rockdale. We had to repair a telephone outside the tunnel. And so we were at Rockdale. Now, Rockdale used to have a roundhouse up there. I gave you pictures of that.
You sure did.
So I went up there with him. It was kind of a safety thing. And so we had to put this telephone in, new telephone. We had to put a ground wire in. So we put a piece of pipe on top of this ground wire to drive the ground wire straight, and so we wouldn't hit our arms. Bang, kabang, kabang, kabang. What the hell is that? That ground wire went down and hit the rock and turned up. It is in the rear end, so to speak. It was really hilarious.
Well, it was shocking, but not in an electrical way.
Yeah. So when we come back down, we had the motor car and we had a flat car. So I would get Tom to stop every once in a while. We saw some old cedar, and I'd grab that cedar and put it up on top of the flat car and bring it down here. Then I took it down the hill. There used to be a guy that split cedar shakes not too far from where you go to the community down at the bottom, down the river there. Yeah, just before you get to that, in one of those curves there, one of those homes over there. So he split 30 squares of cedar for me for my house when I built my house on Vashon. That was a freebie I got. Well, what else did he? I don't know.
Those were great years. And what years were you here?
69 through 74.
And then where did you go?
Then in 72, I started building a house on Vashon Island. I bought the place on Vashon Island when I got out of high school in 57. I bought an acre on the beach for $9,000 or $7,000. And I built a house there for $30,000. Oh, I bought a bulldozer. I had bought a bulldozer down at the bottom of the hill that they used this bulldozer to work on well, that's a new bridge that goes across the river. But the old bridge, this guy had this cleat track bulldozer. It had a 4-cylinder Jeep engine in it. And he did some work down there, and then he just couldn't handle it, so he wanted to sell it. So I bought it. I brought it up here. And Cecil Gilhart, who you might read about, Cecil had me do all kinds of little putzle work around here.
Now, who was Cecil again? What was his role?
Oh, Cecil was a mountain man.
Oh.
He was a mountain man. He knew everything.
So he wasn't a railroad employee?
Oh, yeah, he worked for the railroad.
Oh, Ando was a mountain man, too.
Oh, yeah, you'll see him in articles. He used to run the cut widener behind the snowplow. And no, he was top dog. Nice guy.
And knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, he did know what he was doing. He had me put a battery charger thing. It was when portable tools first came out. And so he had me put a battery charger on his truck so he could charge his batteries for going around. Yeah, he was a great guy. And then all the train crews were good, you know. Gosh, we used to play pinochle with them, and Nancy would come down and help Virginia cook. And
Virginia worked in the beanery.
yeah, Virginia was the manager. I don't know if she was the manager or her husband, but I think she was because he split and went to Alaska, and she stayed here and kept running the beanery. They had two little girls. They still communicate with my girls.
Is Virginia still alive?
Yes, and I tried to get you a contact, but I haven't had approval from her to do that.
Because I know some of our new friends would be interested in talking to her too.
Well, yeah, Virginia lives now in Ellensburg in a place called Reeser Creek. That's where you first go into Ellensburg. You can take a left and then go that way. It's where you can find Ellensburg blue, the blue agates. So back up in there. So you know about that, huh? Okay. You got it in your pocket?
Mines, rocks, railroads, they're my things.
Yeah, so Virginia's up there someplace, but Virginia had, oh gosh, she went to Alaska to be with her husband, and it didn't work out, and she came down, and she had a male friend with her, and they stayed at our place for a month or so until finally, I think Nancy said, hey, it's time for you to keep moving. But she had serious eye vision problems, and she went to Ellensburg, and she worked at some kind, I want to say a bowling alley. It was at a restaurant. She worked in some kind of a restaurant.